Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at some example responses to this question. Again, it's from the Rosabel text about the redhead girl has many advantages in life, and the fact that Rosabel has a right to be angry. So remember, for these questions, you don't have to focus on both parts of the text. It is possible, it usually is possible, but as long as you say a lot about the parts of the statement that you're writing about, that's what matters. And again, it's always easier to agree because the statements are written in such a way that you can find more and explain things more clearly if you agree with the statement. So let's look at the mark scheme again. So we've got a level 2. I'm not looking at level 1 because none of you are level 1, so we're not even going to pay attention to that. But we are going to look at kind of level 2 where everybody seems to be a bit stuck. Again, it's because of that attempt to respond to the statement. Remember, it's that you have to explain everything clearly. If upon rereading your paragraph, you look at it and go, I don't really know what that means, or okay, so then that's a level 2 and you won't get any higher than half marks from that point. So you need to make sure you've explained everything as fully as possible, because that is what's going to get you into that level 3 and 4. Now level 3, all you need to do, and again, in order to get into each level, you only need to do this once. It's better if you do it throughout because that'll get you more marks. But you only need to be clear one time to get into level 3. Remember, it's this bit here that puts you in level 3. These other bits are what help gain more marks within that level. So if you have mentioned the effect on the reader, if you have textual detail, if you use your subject terminology correctly, but you don't have a clear response to the focus of the statement, then you will not get level 3, guys. So all of these are important, but they're important not this is what determines the level. Now for level 4, right? Level 4 is where you do a perceptive or a critical and detailed response. So what that means is you've gone just that little bit beyond the question to look at kind of the bigger picture in terms of the statement. And I'll explain what that means because we're going to see a level 4. But so for this one, let's look at some examples and see and let you know what these are. So let's look at this one. Yes, it's quite long. It's the full response, but I wanted to show you all the different parts of the response and what gets it a level 3 or a level 4 or level 2 over other bits. So we start off with the I agree, which you always should. But I agree that in this extract, the redhead girl is clearly shown to have many advantages in life, but I believe that Rosabel's anger was only justified to an extent. So this is an example of how you can slightly disagree because they've said to an extent, which means that, you know, that they're going to say something about how it's not quite as full on as the statement originally suggested. And we'll get to that in a second. So if you look at this, the girl is shown to be blessed, as in our first impression of her, it is shown that she is blessed with good looks. All right, so yeah, good looks are an advantage. You know, I can go with that. Good looks are an advantage. So that's our how. How is the girl shown to have advantages? She's got good looks. Color imagery is used. So there's our methodology, right? Method is used to make her seem more appealing. In red hair, white skin, the eyes the color of green. The color of her, now, so there's our where, and there's our method. But we need more why, right? Why do those good looks make her seem advantaged? Because a poor person can have red hair and white skin and green eyes, right? Somebody not, you know, Rosabel could have had red hair and white skin and green eyes. That is not enough. We need to explain why those things, or how the writer makes those things seem advantaged. And that's what this person does here. So the color of her eyes is also compared to that ribbon they got from Paris. Paris is known as the center of fashion, and its connotations make her appear more beautiful and of higher class. So connecting it, right, to the fact that Paris is the center of fashion and high classness, that's what makes it, that's the why. That is the explanation of why her good looks make her seem advantaged. But let's keep going. So it says the girl also seems to be somewhat spoiled, and it is clear that she could have anything she wanted. So we've got our how, right? She's spoiled. It says this is shown when it is said that they would demand the impossible. So there's our where, which seems hyperbolic. So there's our method. She cries out, "I must have that," and swept out to her carriage, leaving Harry to pay. This shows that she expects that things will do as she wants them, and the speed of the verb swept shows that she has no doubts Harry will do what she wants him to. So there's our explanation of things will do as she wants them, and that Harry will do as she expects him to. So there's our why again, right? Rosabel is justified in her anger, as the two people had been difficult to please, as she was almost in despair and was running breathlessly to try and satisfy them. Okay, that's fine, right? So we've got our how, how is Rosabel justified in her anger? Because they had been difficult to please. So there's our how, there's our where, right? But why? Why does that make her justified? This person doesn't explain that. However, Rosabel's anger also seems a little absurd, as she seems to think the girl is mocking her by telling her that the hat suits her beautifully, which is not necessarily true. Okay, again, why does that make it absurd, right? So this isn't our why, this is me actually asking the question, why, right? So this actually got, if I remember correctly, this is a level 3, but it's kind of a mid-range level 3. It's not a high level 3. It's not 14, 15 marks. It actually got 12. So it only got 12 marks, which is kind of not the bottom of level 3, but close to the bottom. And the reason it got 12 marks is, honestly, those last 2 paragraphs. Because these last 2 paragraphs were a bit kind of what? It brings down the whole rest of the response. So don't write things for the sake of it, is what I'm trying to get at, right? Don't just put it because you think that you need to address it. If you don't fully explain it, all it can do is bring down your responses. If they had left this and maybe expanded on this bit, right? Like we wrote up in our model paragraph in the last video, then that would have probably gotten them a top level 3, which, is 15 marks out of 20, which is pretty good. But as it is, they lost 3 marks for trying to include too much without saying a lot. Alright, so let's look at this one. So, disclaimer, just because it's shorter doesn't mean it's lesser, but we'll see. So this one says, I agree with the statement. The redhead girl is obviously from a higher class than Rosabel, so has more money. Her carriage at the door. This suggests the girl has her own transport, so doesn't use public transport like the lower class. Alright, so that's alright. So that explains, like, why the carriage at the door. So there's our where, right? There's our how in a sense. Or how is a higher class and has more money, right? So I guess that's our how. And then, so why does carriage at the door mean she has more money? Because she doesn't use public transport. But it says Rosabel doesn't have this advantage. As the reader, you can understand Rosabel's anger towards the girl. So this is the part that kind of leaves me going, huh? Like, they don't explain that fully. Like, why does the fact that the girl has a carriage mean that Rosabel should be angry at her? So this is already starting to pull it down a bit. So then it goes on. It says the girl makes Rosabel try on the hat and pays her a compliment. It suits you beautifully. Rosabel might be angered by this because she knows she could never afford a hat like that because she's of lower class. Okay, right? So this is a good kind of explanation. So this is a good why statement. But it's not really explained fully. Like, there's a whole lot of seems and maybes. So they would need to maybe support this with quotes from the text that show she wants the hat. So, I mean, this is actually, this could be doable because if you look at the text, right? The fact that if this person mentioned that, she described it in such loving detail, if they had included that bit to back up the fact that they thought Rosabel wanted the hat, then that would maybe make more sense. But as it stands, it's kind of just left going, okay, but. It says Rosabel might feel jealous of the girl because she has a man to pay for her hat. The girl doesn't have to pay for it herself. Rosabel has to earn her money and pay her way, but the girl doesn't. Yeah, but there's nowhere in the text that says that she feels jealous. Like, she gets angry, and part of your job as responding to this question is to explain why she's angry and what she's angry about, and whether she should be justified. But this person doesn't explain that Rosabel even felt jealous, especially because when she gets angry, right, she gets angry here because they'd been hard to please and demanding the impossible, and she gets angry once at this whole statement when the girl says that the hat suits her beautifully. This might actually even be useful to back up this, well, because it says it there. Yeah. And I would maybe respond that, Rosabel. So what this person's got, there's stuff here, but it's not explained well enough, which is why this got a level 2, and in fact got 9 marks. So not quite top level 2, not quite bottom level 2, but still, there's a lot of huhs and buts and okay, yeah, right? There's a lot of questions being left, and not questions that are answered, but questions from me as a person marking the response. So this is a level 2. Now, let's look at this one, right? So just because it's longer doesn't mean it's better, remember, but let's see how this person goes about it. So it says, I agree with the student, as the redheaded girl seems to have come from a higher class background with more privileges. She seemingly carries an air of grace and respectability, carefree but with high standards. This is shown throughout her dealings with Rosabel. For example, when she found the perfect hat, the girl exclaimed, "Isn't it adorable? I must have that." All right, so we've got a very detailed explanation of why she seems like she's from a higher class, right? Because she's got this grace and respectability, she's carefree, and then the where is her dealings in Rosabel, with her dealings with Rosabel. Specifically, isn't it adorable? I must have that. Then we go into the method. So the use of must, right? So just because they didn't say, the modal verb or anything like that, that's fine. As long as you're pointing out the specific method of the quote. So the use of must here shows how used she is to getting her own way. As she feels no need to ask or even use manners, she merely gets what she wants when she wants. So this is, how does the word must show that she's got carefree but with higher standards? And there it is, right? So at this point, we are definitely within level 3 range. It says, even after she said this, she goes on to compliment how well it suits Rosabel. This almost suggests naivete, as though the red-headed girl doesn't realize not everyone lives like her and can afford the luxuries she can. Now, that statement right there is what bumps this into level 4. So remember, you only need to do it once. But this got, I believe this got 16, the bottom of level 4, but it's still level 4, 16 marks. And it's because this is considered a perceptive comment. And what makes it perceptive is that it goes beyond the initial picture and considers, why else might the girl be acting like this? Well, because she's naive. She's so high class and so advantaged. She has no other concept of how people might live besides the way she does. And then he brings it to Rosabel to talk about why Rosabel might be justified in being angry. This is very contrasting to Rosabel's life, as she works tirelessly for the upper class who care not for her, and she gets little reward. So there's our why does she, how does the writer show that she should be angry? Right? So there's our how statement. Rosabel's sudden ridiculous feeling of anger, there's our where, seems to be the pent-up rage at the system she is stuck in, serving hats to wealthy women with rich tastes. Ooh, so there's our why statement. Why does that ridiculous feeling of anger, show that she is upset at working tirelessly for the upper class? Well, because it's the pent-up rage at the system she's stuck in. Now, personally, if I was marking this, I would have marked this as another perceptive comment. but it wasn't marked as such on the actual exam by the examiners. However, this is going beyond the statement to look at the system, not just the girl. It says the writer's use of ridiculous makes it seem as though Rosabel doesn't want to be angry at the woman, and the use of the verb flushing shows how she contains herself. So again, this is kind of where they lost marks. I think if this had been explained a bit more, or with a bit more clarity, they probably would have gotten more marks. But it feels rushed, and you can tell it's rushed because there's a comma there, so they ran out of time. This is obviously just them kind of writing everything they could think of. But this bit hints at another perceptive comment, because they go into the fact that flushing almost shows embarrassment at the anger, as though a girl like her shouldn't be angry with what she has. She has steady income, and for some people this would be reasons for her not to be angry, as she is making a livelihood. So if they had gone into more detail here and maybe said something like, however, because of being in the moment, Rosabel allowed herself to feel angry, or something to that effect. If they had closed it up, they might have gotten more than 16 marks at this point. So just remember, it is much better to write a little, right? So this is the length of the level 3 on the other side, but it's better to write a little about or a lot about a little than trying to write everything about everything, right? Pick 2 or 3 things. So we've got, 2 quotes here. We've got 2 quotes here. So don't try to overcomplicate it. Just remember, for each of your paragraphs, how does the writer do this? Where is this found? Plus your method. Why does that quote and method show your response to these questions? And how does that affect you? Why does it make you agree? Or to some extent. So good luck.